22, and this happened just last year when I was living alone in a small rental house. It was an older house with creaky floors, outdated wiring, and an unfinished basement that I avoided as much as possible. The basement always gave me the creeps. Something about its cold, damp air and the single bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling made me uneasy. One night, I was home alone after a long day of work. It was a Friday, and I was looking forward to a quiet evening to unwind. I ordered some takeout, watched a movie, and around 11 p.m., I started getting ready for bed. As I was brushing my teeth, I heard a faint click from the hallway. I paused, toothbrush in hand, listening. Another click, then a quiet hum. My heart sank. I knew exactly what it was. The light in the basement had turned on. That was impossible. I had lived in the house for almost a year, and I never touched the basement light. I kept the door locked at all times. I didn't even store anything down there. Just a couple of old paint cans left by the previous tenant. No one else had a key to the house. No one could have gone down there. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just a wiring issue. The house was old after all, and sometimes the lights flickered. But this was different. The light wasn't flickering. It had clicked on, like someone had pulled the chain. I walked slowly down the hallway, my heart pounding. The door to the basement was still shut, but I could see the faint glow of light leaking out from under it. I stood there for what felt like forever, trying to decide what to do. Should I open the door? Call someone? I grabbed my phone and texted my best friend, but she didn't respond right away. It was late, and I didn't want to seem paranoid, but something felt really wrong. Summoning my courage, I slowly unlocked the basement door. I cracked it open just enough to peek down the stairs. Sure enough, the light was on, casting long shadows across the unfinished cement floor. But there was no sound, no movement, just that bare light bulb swinging slightly, as if someone had just walked past it. I couldn't bring myself to go down there. Instead, I shut the door, locked it again, and retreated to my bedroom, my heart racing. I told myself I'd deal with it in the morning when it was light out, but I barely slept that night. The next day, I finally worked up the nerve to go down to the basement. I grabbed a flashlight, just in case the light went out again, and carefully opened the door. I slowly descended the creaky stairs, every step making me more anxious. When I reached the bottom, I immediately pulled the chain to turn off the light. As I turned to go back upstairs, my flashlight swept across something that made me stop in my tracks. There, in the dust on the cement floor, were footprints. They were faint, but clear enough that I could tell they didn't belong to me. The shoes were larger, heavier. Someone had been down there. I ran up the stairs and locked the door behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to do. The idea that someone had been in my house while I was upstairs made me sick to my stomach. I called the landlord to ask if there had been any maintenance done recently. Anything that could explain why the basement light had been on, or why there were footprints. He assured me that no one had been in the house, and he hadn't sent anyone over in months. I never found out who, or what, had been in my basement that night. I moved out a few months later, but the memory of that light clicking on, and those footprints in the dust, still haunts me. I was 25, living in a rented house on the edge of a small town. It was a quiet area with not much traffic, and my backyard was surrounded by trees that gave me privacy from the neighbors. I had been living there for about 6 months, and everything had been pretty normal until one night in mid-October. I had gotten home late from work, around 9 p.m., and I was exhausted. After grabbing a quick dinner, I decided to take a shower and go to bed early. As I was getting ready for bed, I heard a strange noise, like footsteps outside my bedroom window. At first, I thought it was just an animal. Living so close to the woods, I'd hear raccoons or stray cats sometimes. But this time, the sound wasn't random. It was steady. Crunch, 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 like someone was walking slowly through the leaves. I turned off the light in my room, standing perfectly still as I listened. The footsteps continued, circling around the side of the house. I grabbed my phone, debating whether to call the police. But before I could decide, the footsteps stopped, replaced by a new sound, a low, deliberate tapping. It was coming from the back door. I froze, my heart pounding. My back door was glass, and I hadn't drawn the blinds yet. Slowly, I crept toward the living room, where I could see the back door from the hallway. As I peeked around the corner, my stomach dropped. There was a man standing on my back porch, his face pressed against the glass, staring inside. He wasn't knocking, but he was tapping the glass lightly with his fingers, as if trying to get my attention. I quickly ducked back behind the wall, my mind racing. I didn't recognize him, and I hadn't heard a car pull up. He didn't look homeless. His clothes were clean, and he wasn't acting erratically. But something about him felt wrong. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, whispering to the operator about the man outside my door. As I spoke, the tapping stopped. My heart raced as I realized I couldn't hear him anymore. "Stay on the line," the operator said. But before I could respond, I heard it. A soft, scraping sound, like metal against metal. My breath caught in my throat. The man was trying to unlock the back door. I ran upstairs, locking myself in my bedroom and trying to stay as quiet as possible. I told the operator what was happening, and they assured me the police were on their way. But those minutes felt like hours. I could hear him downstairs, fiddling with the lock, moving around the porch. Then, all at once, everything went silent. When the police arrived, the man was gone. They found no sign of forced entry, but there were footprints in the yard, leading from the woods straight to my back door. They searched the area, but didn't find anyone. The officers told me it was probably just someone passing through, but the look on their faces told me they weren't convinced. I moved out a few months later, and I haven't had anything like that happen since. But I'll never forget the way that man stared through the glass, tapping lightly, as if he was waiting for me to open the door. I was 27 when this happened, living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment downtown. The building was old, but it was secure. Key card entry, security cameras in the halls, so I always felt safe. That changed one night when I received a call that still haunts me. It was around 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I had just gotten home from a long day at work. I settled on the couch with my laptop, planning to do some reading before bed. The apartment was quiet, except for the low hum of traffic outside my window. Suddenly my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I don't usually answer calls from numbers I don't recognize, but something made me pick up this time. "Hello?" I said, expecting a robocall or a wrong number. There was silence on the other end. I was about to hang up when I heard a low, raspy voice. "I can see you." I froze, my heart racing. At first, I thought it was a prank, but something about the voice made me feel sick. It wasn't playful, it was cold, almost robotic, like whoever was speaking had no emotion behind the words. I hung up, telling myself it was just a stupid joke. But as I sat there, trying to shake the unease, my phone rang again. The same number. I didn't answer this time, but the voicemail notification came through immediately. I played the message, my hand shaking. "I'm watching you." My stomach dropped. The voice was calm, deliberate. There was no noise in the background, just the voice, slow and unnerving. I jumped up and checked all my windows, making sure they were locked. I lived on the 3rd floor, so I wasn't too worried about someone breaking in, but the feeling of being watched was unbearable. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from the same number. "Look outside." I stared at the message, my mind racing. Against my better judgment, I walked over to the window and cautiously peeked through the blinds. At first, I didn't see anything, just the usual streetlights and empty sidewalks. but then my eyes caught movement across the street. A man was standing under the street lamp, staring directly at my window. He was wearing a dark hoodie, his face obscured in the shadows, but I could tell he was watching me. My heart pounded as I backed away from the window, panic setting in. I grabbed my phone and called the police, barely able to keep my voice steady as I explained what was happening. They told me to stay inside and wait for an officer to arrive. The minutes felt like hours as I sat in the corner of my living room, every noise making me jump. I didn't dare look out the window again. When the police arrived, they searched the area but didn't find anyone. The man was gone. They told me it was probably a prank, someone trying to scare me. But I knew it wasn't just a random joke. Whoever it was, they knew exactly where I was, and they had been watching. I changed my number the next day and had extra locks installed on my door, but the feeling of being watched never completely went away. To this day, I still wonder who that man was, how long he had been watching, and what he would have done if I hadn't called the police.